Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork will commence later this year. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim. And I can say there is actual real construction happening outside my construction office right now. So apologies if you hear a little bit of a pile driver in the background.
Is that on Boundary Road?
It is. I'm not sure what's going on here, but, it adds to the ambiance. Working for a construction association, you're not allowed to complain about any construction that occurs.
No, the sound of jackhammers is the sound of money.
That's right. Precisely.
Jordan, I really have to congratulate the association for your annual dinner where your guest speaker was former Denver and Indianapolis two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback Peyton Manning. I was actually very pleasantly pleased and surprised that not only did he have a nice set speech, which who knows who wrote it, hopefully he had something to do with it, but when you and the director of the association were asking him questions, they were precise, concise, inspiring, and funny.
Yeah, Payne was really a very cool guy, and when you book these big kind of out-of-town speakers, you have to work through their handlers and all that sort of thing, but once you get the individuals themselves, you really see their personality come out. And, for Peyton Manning, small town guy, grew up in the football business with his dad, Archie Manning, the famous New Orleans quarterback, really learned how to conduct himself the right way. Those 4 years in Tennessee kind of give him that southern charm. And then, spending all these years in the public eye is, one of the best, if not the best, one of the two best quarterbacks in football the past 2 decades. You really has, you can kind of see the polish. And when we met him beforehand, the cool thing was, you could imagine yourself in a huddle with this guy, right? Like, he comes in and we were kind of floating some of the question ideas we had and kind of a fun way to finish with the Connect jerseys for him. And, he had, great ideas and he was very much a leader in that position. Not bossy, not pushy, nothing like that, but like wanting to make sure that, our construction folks got what they needed and enjoyed it and, being willing to do that. So, yeah, we really appreciate it. It was we felt a home run of an event. The feedback has been very, very positive. And, the rubber chicken circuit in BC can get pretty bland with the same people speaking over and over again, especially for those of us who are politically, involved. So bringing a fresh set of eyes like a Peyton Manning in really kind of broke the mold.
Well, I have to say the chicken that the Hyatt served was not rubber. It was excellent.
Yeah, it really was. That was the other great thing is the food was good. The crowd was great. They were into it. Sometimes, when you grow up in this culture of these political events or you see them, it's not uncommon to go to a political event and see, every table is sold, but you'll see 15, 20, maybe 25% empty chairs because, it's, speakers they've all heard before, causes they support, but, weren't able to get out from. I'm not sure we could have found 10 empty chairs in that room. Of 750 people. The people who bought the tickets were great fans. We've had great emails from long-time rabid Peyton Manning fans thanking us, and it's been very cool to see the feedback.
And what was the big message you think that he gave your association that will be helpful to them going into the new year?
Well, he talked a lot about. There was a couple of things we thought about when we booked Peyton Manning, and one was. Leadership, strategy. Obviously, he was very much like having an extra offensive coordinator out on the field. Those are important things for any business to learn. The other thing we wanted to talk to him about, and we explored it a little, was, family, being part of a family business, so to speak. I mean, obviously his brother Eli, although, the New York Giants, we could have a whole rant by me on the New York Giants benching Eli this week. His dad, Archie Manning, being a quarterback. That actually parallels construction pretty well. 90% of our member companies are 10 employees and less. Many of them are family businesses. Dad was up on the ladder, mom was booking the calls to start, and then the son came in or a daughter came in and took over the business. And So there's that kind of tradition, that succession, that's something that, Peyton had a unique perspective on, and we were grateful that he explored that a little bit. And then, just funny stories. I mean, who doesn't love hearing about Peyton Manning trying to bribe Ray Lewis at Pro Bowls so he doesn't hit him as hard in the regular season? Those are classic stories, and he's one of the most familiar faces on the planet, and it was cool to have him in Vancouver.
Yeah, I can see why the insurance companies hire him. He's pretty reassuring.
Exactly. He's got that kind of steady thing, and yeah, he was great. We finished off with, kind of fooling around a little bit with, bringing out a Colts jersey and getting the crowd to cheer, and bringing out his Denver jersey and getting the crowd to cheer. But yeah, he really liked the Manning Canuck jersey. He asked if he could keep it. We were like, of course, it's for you. So it was cool to see him play along.
Sure. And now maybe that jersey's been on a Super Bowl winner. Maybe it'll translate into a Stanley Cup. Yes,
there has to be a champion somewhere rubbing off in there. We thought we're actually just getting the photos in from the event, and we're going to send one over to the Canucks ownership. Peyton Manning holding up a Manning 18 Canuck jersey. Maybe it'll end up on a wall next to the pictures of Trevor Linden and Kirk McLean and all the others.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Bateman Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, what's your opinion of the new BC NDP/Green government's labor policy?
Well, you've got to separate them out. Andrew Weaver, for all the grief we give him over his nonsensical position on Site C and Kinder Morgan, on labor issues, he actually comes from a more free enterprise perspective. And it's kind of burst in the fact that he was on the bargaining committee for a few years at the University of Victoria. He knows what rabid trade unionism can do to cause discomfort for not just the employer but for the employees themselves. So he does not go along, does not subscribe to a lot of the crazier NDP things. The problem is a lot of what the NDP wants to accomplish with the labor code, they think they can do through cabinet orders, through regulatory changes, not going through the House and getting proper debate and votes. So the NDP. Look, for 16 years they were out of power. For 16 years, their last kind of core group of supporters, especially that first term, were the trade unions. Those were the people who poured millions of dollars, hundreds if not thousands of volunteer hours into their organization, really kept the NDP afloat. And now, 16 years later, they're back in power, and those groups are champing at the bit to try to get whatever they can out of the NDP. What troubles us is that we're really, the NDP are looking to, quote unquote, solve a problem that doesn't exist. So, they want to drag us back to the 1990s as far as labor relations go. But the past 20 years, or 16, 17 years in construction labor has been excellent. The industry has evolved. It's safer than it's ever been. The wages and benefits are better than they've ever been. The trade unions, building trade unions have about 20% of the construction market. The progressive unions and open shops have the other 80%. There's fair competitive bidding. It's been good. It's been good. The quality of the product is better than ever. So these are the good things. But John Horgan, because he's so wrapped up in these labor tradition and values, wants to go back to essentially force feeding work to the building trades unions. Which anytime you give a group an advantage over another, or even a monopoly on certain kind of projects, means higher costs, more inefficiencies, and less quality work.
Plus, you get less work done, fewer projects because they cost a whole lot more.
Well, that's exactly it. He talks about going back to the Vancouver Island Highway model, and most of the people who were around in the 90s just shake their head like, why is this a good model? That was terrible. You forced people to essentially, construction workers, to join a building trades union for a brief period of time. They pay a bunch of union dues, even paid into the union pension plan, and then left to go back to their open shop companies right after, never getting any of the benefits that may or may not come along with being in the union. So, but it's not, on something like this, I don't believe it's cabinet driving the bus on it. I believe it's, this is their key stakeholder. These are the people who kept them afloat. Think how many times people talked about the, hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations the steel workers gave them in the last election. This is their way of trying to pay those folks back. So for us, it's trying to educate the public that on some of the rhetoric, and just making sure that the public understands that, anytime you give one group an advantage over another, or try to monopolize work into the union-only sector, you get rid of all the advantages that come along with competition.
They had 16 years in opposition. They were pretty good at barking across the house, ideas that they had. But now that they're in power, everything is under study. It has to go to a committee. And I thought they would hit the ground running if you had so much time to plan things.
Yeah, Jordan Sturdy, the Liberal MLA, calls it analysis paralysis. And, it is amazing. Like, governing is very different than opposing. Being in opposition, it's easy to throw all these ideas around, but you have you don't have the same infrastructure that you have in government as far as, what's possible, what needs the legislation, what's regulatory. And you're starting to see the NDP realize that, hey, some of these decisions the Liberals made over the years weren't as bad as they thought. I mean, the most startling one, I think, is in the housing file, right? Like, how much hay did David Eby make out of affordability in the years leading up to this last election? I mean, the guy was out every week with another press conference and whatnot. Now he's the Attorney General. He's got Selena Robinson, a political ally of his, in as Minister of Housing, Municipal Affairs and Housing. He's got a Premier whose road to a majority runs through the Lower Mainland, where he needs to have affordability. And all of a sudden, all of these big ideas, have dried up. We're not seeing them anywhere. The same guy who was out there kicking the stuffing out of the BC Liberals is now, quietly sitting on his hands and doing nothing on the same file. So, very perplexing to see that. I'm with you. You'd think after all these years in opposition that they would have a more fully formed policy plan. It benefits us in some ways. Site C, for example, some of their more activist people seem to be coming back around to Site C as they actually do proper research and not rely just on the NIMBYs and anti-everything folks. But, it just confuses me why it's taking them so long.
Well, one thing that really impressed me about Justin Trudeau when he became Prime Minister was how many of his promises he managed to actually complete within just a few months of being elected. There's a few other things he's gone back on that he promised, but I was totally impressed that he actually seemed to have a plan to get things going. Now, of course, we've bogged down about their plan to attack small business, and I think Bill Morneau is paying the price because they're digging up some pretty interesting questions for him.
Yeah, Trudeau is such an interesting cat. I mean, here's a guy who looked, First Nations in the eye, looked the Dogwood Initiative in the eye and said he wouldn't support the Kinder Morgan pipeline, and then approved it. And, it's a broken promise from their point of view, but, long term it's the right thing to do. Tomorrow, or is it today, Rachel Notley is in town. She's going to give a speech to the Vancouver Board of Trade and make the case for the Kinder Morgan pipeline. The case has been made, right? This is something that's been approved by the federal and provincial government. It should be under construction today. It's still not. We're in just such a weird place in this province and in this country when it comes to resource development and investment. You start to get concerned about where we're headed.
Well, Stuart Muir from the Resource Works Society pointed out when I talked to him last week that BC finally got one shipment of liquefied natural gas to China, and China would just love to see more of it. I haven't heard of any major pollution connected to liquefied natural gas. It seems to be a natural for BC with 200 years of proven natural gas reserves. to a nation that wants to drastically improve their air quality. And I'm also curious about why all of a sudden in the last 2 years, natural gas became a bad thing to have, whereas before we were told it was a nice clean fuel.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Gregor Robertson, his natural gas ban in Vancouver, drove a lot of that. And now, last week he quietly signed a memo of understanding with Fortis BC and, completely surrendered on the topic. The natural gas ban is gone. In fact, the MOU talks about bringing in bringing in natural gas powered vehicles, which of course, run cleaner than oil powered vehicles. It's fantastic. So, I'm hoping that some of this is starting to come around a little bit, but as long as you have millions of dollars in U.S. advocacy money pouring into all of these different environmental NGOs, and they're completely reliant on that money now to power their organizations, whether a project is good or not, they're going to fight it. And that's what we're seeing with Site C, hydroelectricity, cleanest power in the world. And, there isn't a jurisdiction on Earth that wouldn't be, putting the Site C dam in if they had the opportunity. But here it's a dirty word. And, it's just ridiculous to think that we're allowing these NGOs to control the narrative like that.
Jordan, didn't a new report come out about the Site C study saying it missed or didn't include a number of parameters that should have been included in their study?
Yeah, shockingly, when you only give 6 weeks to review a multi-billion-dollar project, mistakes get made. They didn't include sunk costs. No one, even the clean energy agency people, think that the power models, the electrical demand models touted by BCUC are accurate because they're so low. It didn't include anything on climate change. The report really is a complete waste of time. And even these numbers that get thrown around like gospel by these reporters now, that the fact, they claim there's a fact that it's going to be over budget. Well, that's just one agency, one accounting firm's look at it. There are other accounting firms that say, no, they'll finish within budget. So it's kind of like pick your poison almost as far as that goes. You just don't know until you actually are building the thing. But to ignore $4 billion worth of sunk costs and then claim that alternative energy is roughly the same price, crazy, and the BCUC, frankly, should be embarrassed. The BCUC should, bluntly, this kind of reinforces why, the BCUC probably shouldn't be given as much reverence as some groups do.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after the break.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, I'm also surprised that the NDP hasn't announced anything about extending SkyTrain out to UBC. The current bus loop is Broadway is the busiest transit corridor in Canada and still relies on buses. And also I thought maybe they would get new hospital construction underway, maybe help Surrey get their light rail underway, and I haven't heard anything about that. Those are infrastructure things that definitely we need, and yet nothing's being done on it.
Yeah, we haven't seen any school construction start yet either, so...
Yes, Surrey desperately needs it.
Yeah, and, the surplus is gone. The, big surplus from last year is gone. They're dipping into contingency funds already on this year's budget. I don't know where they're going to get the money for this stuff. And, the TransLink mayors, when they heard that the NDP were going to raise the carbon tax and take away revenue neutrality, the NDP mayors were all over that saying, or the TransLink mayors were all over it thinking that could help fund their share of the line. That seems to have completely fallen off the radar. I'm betting the NDP said absolutely not. Really interesting to see how long this is taking in. You're talking about billions of dollars worth of borrowing at a time where, the economy has been very strong in BC, outperforming Canada for a few years now. The problem with being an outperformer is that eventually you come back down to earth, and eventually other jurisdictions are going to move past us and other challenges are going to come up. let alone the message that's being sent to the investment community worldwide about how hard it is to do business in BC. So eventually the economy is going to slow slightly. And when it does, these guys aren't going to have the money. And if they start mucking around in the housing, that is the single biggest, source of revenue, or a huge source of revenue to the provincial government. If they start slowing the housing market with some of their ideas, again, that's a big problem for what they want to do. So, yeah, where are these big things? I noticed that Carol James was saying, well, daycare is a 10-year program. Think about that, Jim. They'll announce a daycare program for kids who won't be born for 7 years, that you'll have to re-elect the NDP twice before it's put into power. When governments start pushing stuff out that far, it shows that they know the books or they know they've spent the money that they have already.
Well, I remember Jean Chrétien promising an end to child poverty by the year 2000. That hasn't happened. Mm-hmm. And one thing I want to ask, though, is the new Trudeau housing policy, is that good for construction? He plans to build 100,000 social housing units across the nation.
Well, I mean,
or is that just too little?
I mean, it may or may not help, but just the cost to the regular taxpayer. So that 100,000 requires a contribution from him, a contribution from the provincial governments, and land from municipal governments. So taxpayers are paying 3 times for this property. You're talking about, generally, without the land, it's $300,000 to build something decent for as far as social housing goes per unit. You add to that operating costs because, of course, these are taxpayer assets that they'll own for a long period of time. So, we have to maintain them and operate them. You're talking about billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. The numbers sound great, 100,000, but, you stretch that out over 8 or 10 years, whatever you promised, and you stretch it out over 10 different provinces and 3 territories. It's not a heck of a lot.
And also, too, a lot of people questioning the federal government spending, and it depends who you talk to, $5 to $6 billion on a temporary skating rink on Parliament Hill, when they're right next door to the world's longest skating rink, the Rideau Canal, which is open for months.
Isn't this the dumbest thing government's done lately? Of all the things. The government's done a lot of stupid things. This is just ridiculous. My old Taxpayers Federation, I'd be going crazy on this because it's just such a ridiculous waste of money. It just feels like a vanity project. I don't even know what to say about it. Who approves this stuff? Who decides it's a good idea? Who doesn't realize that the Rideau Canal is next door?
And they still can't get their payments to their own workers done on time and accurately.
Yeah. Half the workers get too much money, half the workers get too little, and guess what? The ones who get too much are hard to track down and get paid back. So.
And also, the Auditor General found that a third of the information given by the Canadian Revenue Agency to people, if you could get through their clogged up phone lines, was wrong. Well, if the advice they give a third of the time is wrong, does that mean a third of their prosecutions of people are wrong?
Yeah, great point. This is a big problem. You rely on CRA to play it straight and give you straight information, but as guys like as people have seen across the country, that's not always the case.
And can you sue them if they give you the wrong advice?
No, it's very hard. I mean, Irvin LaRue, Valemont, think of how many years he fought for his settlement. He never got any cash out of CRA. It's really worrisome. You need the tax agency to be fair, to be nonpartisan, to be the best at the best administrators you can possibly have. The problem is you have a tax code that's so complicated and it requires so much interpretation that all these different people get to try it.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Communications Director for the Canadian Independent, or for the BC Independent Contractors and Business Association. Their website, icba.ca. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you very much for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.